everybody. Welcome on into Tomes. My name is Jason Wiley.
This is Cody Green. We're your hosts for Tomes and all the fun that you'll have here.
Yep, and with this podcast so far, we just kind of dove straight on in because Rings of Power was coming out, so we never really got the chance to really introduce ourselves. So we kind of want to spend this episode kind of introducing ourselves, telling you guys who we are, our general background, and actually how even me and Cody became friends, kind of our story, our history, and all of this. Because our big thing with Tomes is we need to tell stories, and so what better story we should tell than ours?
Exactly. Um, so I guess to start with how we met, or should we start with how we met, or should we start with our own stories of how we got into fantasy?
Real quick, let's see here. Do you have any announcements, anything you want to just quickly cover before we dive into kind of our stories and anything like that?
Um, Not a ton. Just remember to check out the other videos we did on the Rings of Power, the review, and I check out our Patreon, our Discord, and all other things that we have.
Yeah, just check out all of our stuff. Check out, well, again, you'll get access to our Discord when you sign up for the Patreon. And then for the rest of it, yeah, check us out on social media, whether that be Twitter, whether that be well, we haven't gotten Instagram yet, but definitely YouTube. YouTube is kind of like our main plug, and we're also on Spotify. So whatever platform you're listening to this on, please hit that follow, subscribe, whatever, just because it again doesn't cost anything to you, but for us, it helps us kind of build kind of a community because that is one thing we're wanting to do is build this community. And I guess for me, I do have one announcement that I'm wanting to do. I have officially signed up for NaNoWriMo.
That's right. That's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know what that is, honestly, what NaNoWriMo actually is more of a charity organization for writing for youths. This is something that a lot of writers use to kind of help kickstart their own writing. So just like how in October is also dubbed Inktober for artists, I would say NaNoWriMo is something similar for writers. So throughout the month of November, they have that entire month to write 50,000 words of a story. This is actually how Brandon Sanderson first started Stormlight Archives, is through a NaNoWriMo challenge. So a lot of these big time authors, or even just like a lot of small time authors, they use NaNoWriMo as a chance to really motivate themselves to write something. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been in the prep stages and I finally figured out like the overall arcing story. I got the my first book layout figured out. I am now like, okay, I think I'm ready to get started on this. So I'm actually really excited. And because I have written parts of this in the past before. I've written like the prologue, the prelude, chapter one. I think I even got up to chapter four. But now, since I've like reworked it all, I'm like, okay, I need to go back. So I'm reworking chapter one and then three on. Chapter two is solid, like prelude, prologue. So for me, I'm gonna do chapter one as accounting, and then three on. Is for my word count. Uh,
Nice. You want to give us a little preview?
I can give you a little bit of prologue. So let me quickly pull up Google. All right. So the prelude for what I have is okay. Here we go. Prelude, Chronicler Belgrade Almanac. Jace walked into the Grand Council Hall, determined that his plan was the only course of action to solve the conflict on Belgrade. Jace was assigned a monitor, and yeah, I still need to do some proofreading here because I have so I need to get rid of that.
No
Jace was
worries.
assigned to monitor any and all activity on the planet. Seeing it in its current state, Jace believed that there was something bigger at play. Belgrade was just one of many planets in the universe, which has seen a lot of difficult times, from wars, mass genocide, pestilence, and many more things. Belgrade was a place that has seen a lot of pain and suffering, but there was always a spark of hope. Jace had seen it. He feels strongly that Belgrade holds the key to what is possible, and more specifically, what is coming. Belgrade is an underdeveloped world with very little technological advancement, since its setback from the calamity, but has compensated for its loss with magic. This was one of the reasons why Jace took such an interest in the world. There were all sorts of beings that lived on it, and its diversity was astounding. There are beings one could only imagine, like elves, dwarves, humans, salamanders, and many more. There's so much potential. Jace had to do something in order to save this world. He needs to show and explain to the council how detrimental Belgrade is to them. If they don't intervene, billions of souls would be lost into chaos, and that was something none of the chroniclers wanted. Jace gathered his things, went over his notes, and practiced what he was going to say to the council. As he was practicing, Jace heard footsteps approaching down the hall. When he looked up from his notes across the antechamber, Jace saw his old friend and colleague, Cole, approaching him. Cole was a tall young man. His dark skin made him stand out in this marble entryway. Cole's tattoo around his eyes made some people hesitant to approach him. Cole made his way to his longtime friend and teacher. Jace, are you sure about this? What you claim has no evidence or proof. I understand that you have a fondness for this people, but is it really worth it? Jace looked at his old student and thought back to when he picked this kid up from the slums. This kid who pickpocketed and took food not only for himself, but for some of the other kids who didn't have a home after the calamity. Jace saw kindness in this boy and wanted to show him there was a bigger picture, and now he's a man. Jace smiled and snickered. Come on, Cole. Losing faith in your old teacher? I'm glad that you haven't changed since I picked you up as a boy. Cole's face grew serious. This is no laughing matter. If they disapprove, you will lose your status and the right to walk these halls. You'll become wretched. Jason's smile widened. Oh, you're going to miss me? Oh, Cole, what happened to the rambunctious, rebellious youth I loved and cherished? Cole stared deep into Jace's eyes with a stern expression. Jace, I know what you are thinking. Belgrade is a helpless planet that can only give in to hatred and chaos. It is hopeless. The council agreed that it would be better if it were destroyed. The souls would be able to the souls would be able to change in their next life. Don't stake your rank on the likes of them. They aren't worth the risk. Jace touched Cole's shoulder and looked into his eyes, adopting a more sincere expression. My rank means nothing. I was given a job to do. I am to look out for the best interests of the council and for Belgrade. I'm responsible for whether it falls or not. If we can save an entire planet and billions of souls, it is a sacrifice I am willing to make. You may think that it's hopeless, but I'm willing to believe otherwise. I once knew a boy who others saw as hopeless, and he has turned into a fine young man. With a quick pat, Jace walked past Cole and approached the large marble double doors, and stopped. Cole turned to look at Jace. Jace turned his head to look at Cole with a somber expression and looked into Cole's eyes. That's what makes us different from everyone else, Cole. We are able to make the sacrifices that no one else can. The sacrifice to save worlds and souls. You may not agree with me on this, but this is something we must do, not just for their sakes, but for ours as well. Jace then walked into the Grand Council Hall. And that is the prelude.
Nice. I definitely want to hear more.
Well, you're not going to hear much more about that part for a long time.
No worries. I am one thing.
Okay,
Sorry.
go
I
for it.
just at one point earlier on you used the word detrimental. Could you reread that sentence?
Okay, let me see if I can find that.
It's pretty early on, like the second
Just
paragraph. It's
difficult
talking about
times, against
the planet's detriment.
genocide. Uh, yeah. Okay. Difficult times, wars, mass genocide, pestilence. Belgrade was a place I've seen a lot of pain, suffering. Strong Belgrade food, more specifically, Belgrade's under. Okay, this is reason to beings. Never see the beings. Okay, something order. You need to explain. Okay, yeah. He needed to show and explain to the council how detrimental Belgrade is to them. So, okay.
Define detrimental or detrimental.
Let me look it up.
Because detrimental means harmful. And if he's
Oh,
trying to save it, I think you mean indispensable.
yeah.
I am beneficial, how essential, something like that. I heard that and it just didn't fit with what was said, so I just wanted to help you with that.
Ah, yeah, no, tending to cause harm. Yep. Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay. Oh, how about crucial?
Crucial, yeah.
There we go. All right, sounds good.
Okay.
And then for all the listeners out there, this is our goal for the long term, is we want you guys to be able to submit your stories to us, and we would love to go through and read the stories, just kinda as I just did, but have it be your guys' stories. And then as what Cody just did, of just critique it. So that way, because we want these stories to come across and again, don't take us as, like, professional editors. We are not. We are just huge fantasy book nerds.
Yep. Although I am gaining experience right now in doing this,
Mhm,
so for all the listeners, I am currently going back to college to finish a degree, and one of the classes I'm taking is English 301 or Advanced Reading and or Writing and Research. I am in this specific class every Friday. We have essays that we have to bring into a workshop, and we work on other people in the class's essays and critique it and show how to write better. And that's something that I'm learning more and more of. And
mhm,
so that's a big thing that I'm getting more experience in, so I should be able to do a little bit better helping in that way.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
self plug.
Oh, no, dude, it's fine. And actually, I think I took that class before. Oh, no, no, I think it was, like, argument and reasoning or something,
Yeah, so that'd be English 151.
I think, yeah. I just remember that we were given, like, controversial topics, we had to defend one side of the argument. Anyway,
Yeah, it's a fun class.
it is a fun class. So, anyway, so kicking that off, so what would you like to share, Cody? Do you got part of a story you wanna share? And then we can then divulge into our backstories.
Ooh, that's actually a great question. Let's see if I still have it. I I haven't written in a long time. It's something I want to get back into. And let's see if I think I'll save mine for next time because I can't find my flash drive.
Okay, and that's fine. So what we can do is we can cover our backstories, how we met, how we became friends, and how we got into fantasy.
Yes. Um, well, so let's start with our own backstories into fantasy, and then we can go to the point where we met. Because
Okay.
I don't know about you, but I started well early on in my life with my love of fantasy.
Okay.
So my first thing, I was looking at it all and what I could remember, and the first thing that really got me into the fantasy world was playing Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
So we had that. I think I was 5 when I first started playing it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I loved it, and that carried on for years. Then going into elementary school, all the books and things, I started reading The Secrets of Droon, Animorphs, the Shadow Children series. And the Shadow Children series is one. It's like the Among the Hidden and all those. Um, that one, it's less fantasy and it's more of the science fiction side of it. And that was my first introduction into that because I read that before I read Animorphs. But it really going through that, like Dragons Del Tora, and that was my youth, was reading those things. And then in middle school, Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, Inheritance, Cycle, all of those. And then that's where high school happened, and that's where Jason moved in, and that's when we became friends.
Yeah, and for me, this is where I'm almost like the other side of the coin. I was the kid who absolutely hated reading. I did not like reading in any way, shape, or form. It wasn't actually until middle school that I started to enjoy reading. All throughout elementary school, we were always given like, "Oh, we need to read this." Like it was all these like books. I'm like, "Nah, nah, I'd rather play video games." I'd rather So for me, I would say my first real taste into fantasy was actually when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And
Okay.
that was when the Fellowship movie came out. And which my parents, since I was 8 years old, banished me to the basement because it was a PG-13 film. But I remember, like,
Yeah.
I had to go up for a cup of water, and the first thing I saw was the Balrog, and I was like, "That is cool! That is so cool!" And then like I was then ushered back downstairs. And then
Mhm.
afterwards, I was like, "Yeah, no, I saw like that fiery monster. It was so cool." And my parents were like, "You thought that was cool?" It's like, "Yeah." Like, "Okay, we thought you get scared of it. Okay, well, you can kind of watch the film." So, eventually was able to watch the film. I was like, "Okay, kinda cool," but was again, for an 8-year-old watching Lord of the Rings, it is kind of a slow moving thing.
Yeah.
It was always like, I wanna see the monsters, which for me as a kid, I was really, really into monsters. Like, I am a huge Godzilla nerd because one of the games I played was Godzilla Destroy All Monsters, which was like a Super Smash Bros. Version of Godzilla monsters.
Nice.
Like, you would just fight with monsters, and so I had, like, this huge obsession with monsters, and so a Balrog with my monster obsession, it grew.
Yep.
And then got into middle school, and first book I was given was The Lightning Thief. And that's where I really started to enjoy reading. I read through the entire Percy Jackson series up till the current point at that time was they just came out with the Titan's Curse.
Oh, yeah.
So after book 3, we were waiting for book 4, and I would go on the forums. I would just look up everything that was Percy Jackson, and I was living in Kentucky at that time, and when book 4 came out, I was like, "Ma, we need to go to Walmart now. We need to go." I remember, like, throwing a huge conniption, like, I even saved money for it. I was like, "I wanna get the book." And my mom, I think, was more surprised that I was so, like, avid to get a book.
Yeah.
She was like, "Okay, we'll make the 25-30 minute drive to Walmart." 'Cause, yeah, we were
Yeah.
living out in the boonies in Kentucky. Like, it was
Yeah.
a nice area, like, again, it was a nice neighborhood, but it was way away from town.
Mhm.
So we drove down to town. I got the book and I just plowed through reading it. And then finally, when book 5 came out, was freshman year of high school. Oh, or no, eighth grade. It was eighth grade.
Yeah.
It was eighth grade. And at that point, I was living in Arizona. And I just remember I finished that book within 3 days. And it was
Nice.
on the third day, I was up till like 2 a.m. reading a book, reading was it The Last Olympian?
Yeah, The Last Olympian is book 5.
Yeah. And finishing it, I'm just like, I now get it. I now get why people love reading. And so that's when I started to really just try reading other stuff. Like I read other murder mysteries, but I really was still not like an avid reader. I was like, okay, I can see kind of the joy in it. Then we packed our bags and moved up to Oregon.
So, along the lines of what you're talking about, though, yeah, so like you said, I'm the opposite end where I read books my entire life. My siblings and I would have competitions who could read a book first, and then we would quiz each other on it.
Mhm.
Like, that's how intense my family was with reading and such, and so it's just really funny to see the other side of things. It's really cool. But yeah, so it was about sophomore year in high school. I is the summer beforehand. And what's funny is that there was like two people who moved in at the exact same time.
Okay.
And I didn't know that you had moved in because we helped someone else move in. And
Okay.
then I go up to church and they're like, "Oh, this is Jason. He's brand new." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like, "Oh, he moved in too." I'm like, "But I helped them move, but he's in too. What's up? Let's go."
And dude, okay, no, honestly, you guys gave off a bad first impression to me. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
sure we
Oh,
did.
no, like, okay, so you guys just came back from High Adventure.
Oh, that's right.
You guys just came back from High Adventure. I just moved up. I'm like, okay, going into this new ward. We're in a small town in Oregon, in McMinnville. It's like, just so you guys are aware, this is actually where meth started. So it's not the best looking town, to be honest. Like coming
No,
from
it's
someone who
not.
came from like Peoria, very sunny, very bright, very woo. Going to constantly
McMahnville.
raining. Yeah, going into McMinnville. So I come and I was like, okay, well, church, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be able to at least connect with maybe a couple people. I'm just gonna try to get more involved in church and everything like that. I walk into teacher's quorum, walk into church class, and I see everybody around the room with shaved heads. And I'm like, "Oh no, oh no, these are a bunch of skinheads."
So, backstory with this. My dad is bald. All the other leaders were bald. And so, as a joke, my dad shaved my head. And so then a few of the other boys shaved their heads as well. So we're all completely, absolutely bald, like shaved, buzzed, everything. And it sucked. I looked terrible bald. Absolutely horrible. So yeah, that was pretty bad.
So, yeah, like you guys were doing in solidarity, it's like, okay, so actually, no, in the backstory, it's like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." But for someone who has no idea coming into that, good crime. Now I'm like, "Oh my gosh, these are a bunch of skinheads." And then you see KJ with, like, honestly, like, there's just something about KJ's face that's kind of off-putting. Like, he seems again, he's too excited. He's very much I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's trying to get me to drink the Kool-Aid."
So so if you picture people with ADHD, that's KJ. That is
Mhm.
everything about ADHD is KJ. I love him to death. He's a great guy, but yeah, he's a spaz.
Oh,
I
he is
hated
a
him at
hard
first. I
oh,
absolutely hated him for the first couple months I knew him. And on that high adventure, on that one specifically, he purposely went out of his way to like de-stake people's tents. And this was like the first week that he had been there.
good gravy.
And so was so bad at him. But he quickly became a really good friend, and then it was this the three of us were a big trio for a long time.
Oh, yeah, we were a trio basically throughout the rest of high school, sophomore through senior year. Although, again, senior year, we all had our issues, but I'd say more specifically, we
Yeah.
had our issues with KJ. But
Yeah. And just life went different for everybody.
yeah, life went different for everybody else. We all went our separate ways, kind of. But again, me and you, again, I think it was just because you and I were in the same year that we stuck more together.
Yeah.
So again, with that, throughout sophomore year, since I was new, I was very, very shy. Like I had a tough time talking to people just because for me, as I moved, I would always have to make new friends. And so for me, it was always like, in one respect, it was a hassle. So seriously, it wasn't until like October.
Yeah.
It was a good month or so that we're finally able to. We did a Halo night
Yep.
because that for young men's for a church activity. And I was like, I actually have Halo Reach, and I was the only one that had a copy of it.
Yep.
And so like, dude, bring it. I was like, oh, okay. So we went over to Cage's house and we had basically the best we could for a LAN party at that time for a Halo Reach.
Yep.
And at that point, and seriously, from that point forward, it's like, okay, that's where friendship started to bond. It was through just kind of our nerdy and video and our love of video games. More specifically, was I would say Halo. Halo was the linchpin in all of this.
Oh, it really was. I mean, for about a year of junior year, we did
Call of
somewhat
Duty.
major league gaming
That was
with
senior
Halo.
year,
Oh,
actually.
senior? Was that? Oh, that's
We did
right.
that senior
Because I was
year.
with Forrest and Steven.
Yeah, Steven and Forrest. Those were the two. For us,
That's
I'd say our heyday with like us three, me, you, and KJ, was all the way through junior year.
that's right.
After junior year, we went into senior year. Uh, there was I'm gonna say there was odd politics in regards to varsity tennis. Like just everybody again, you have your whole issue with the tennis team at that time, and I felt
Yeah.
like I did my best. I did everything I could, and then KJ, I felt like in one respect bullied or like again he wiggled in.
So what happened was so Austin and I were doubles partners for tennis for sophomore junior
Sophomore.
years. And we were really good as a team together. But then senior year, and this is partially on me because I didn't go to some of the summer camps things because I had things with my family all summer.
Hmm.
That they decided not to put me on varsity, but the varsity team was also full of seniors.
Hmm.
Typically the team was about what 12 people,
Yeah, and we had 14. Like honestly, it was more like we made an exception for KJ.
and they
Like it
did,
was
and it was because they wanted to have someone experienced with varsity going on the next year because their entire varsity team was gone after we left.
Yes. What
And
actually it was is there were 2 people on that entire team who were not seniors,
yep,
and it was Daniel and it was KJ.
MJ.
So, for them, it's like, more respect, I understand what they were going for,
Yeah, and that was
and
the side of things I've come to understand and I've let go of, but I'm
but
still bitter because I showed up and I did amazing. I aced Reza,
yeah,
number
dude,
one
like
singles player, and they were just yeah.
yeah, it was one of those instances where it's like, I as the coach's standpoint, I understand, but again, as a kid though, that's still rough. Like, especially high schoolers, sorry, our egos are already in fluctuation as is.
Yeah, yep. It was a rough year, but that was okay. I was
But
better than the JV coach.
mhm.
That was a lot of fun.
And the J oh, yeah, no, I'm trying to remember. Okay, no, 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 no. The assistant coach, he was actually a oh, what was it, Linfield tennis player?
Yeah, he was cool.
Dude, I loved him, like, he was so cool, and I think he actually took over kinda coaching, I wanna say. Like, he started
Nice.
coaching more than Wes did for
Yeah,
when I was there, but I don't know where it is currently.
I don't
But
either.
yeah, anyway, so we stayed friends all the way through high school, and we started putting in our mission papers. We are both, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And
Yeah.
s and was at
No,
that
go
time
ahead.
that they did the age change.
Yeah,
Originally, you served a mission when you were 21 years old. They changed it to 18, so
19.
19.
It
Oh,
was
yeah, that's
19.
right. Women were 21, men were 19. Sorry, that's what
Yep,
it was. So the age change was for the women, they went from 21 to 19, and for the men from 19 to 18. So that
yep,
way, men right out of high school, we could go straight and serve a mission, which is what me and Cody did.
yep. Put
So
in our
we
papers.
started
We had our calls before we graduated high school.
Yep, I actually remember one day telling the tennis coach that I'm gonna be late because I was opening my mission call. And he's
Yeah,
like, "Oh, that's cool. As soon as you get that call and you come tell us what it is." Like, that was
yeah.
where it was really cool. So, I remember getting my mission call. I was called to serve in Sendai, Japan.
I was called to serve in Salt Lake City, Utah South.
Which which again,
Which is
that thing is an
hilarious.
that entire story of you opening it, that was funny because we were down, scouting out Vegas because after my family's plan after I graduated high school was we were gonna move down to Las Vegas.
Yep.
So we were going down scouting everything out when Cody got his mission call, and so he calls us up for for his opening of it.
So prefacing this, at that point I had studied German for 4 years. I had studied Spanish, and then in college I studied Russian, and I am still studying more Russian. So I am very much a linguist. I love languages. I love anything with other cultures. And so I was extremely surprised, and everyone around me was extremely surprised. I was called to Salt Lake City, Utah, English speaking, and the loudest of them was my sister, my oldest sister Katie, who almost angrily shouted "What?" as a result.
It was like everybody in unison shouting, "What?" Like, that was
Everyone
the
thought
I
I was
think the funniest
pranking
part.
them.
Oh, yeah, no, and actually you thought they were pranking you because
Yeah,
your dad was,
this
like,
is
showing
a
you
joke.
stories prior to just, like, dads who swapped the mission call to something like Salt
Yep.
Lake City.
Always to Boise, Idaho, or Salt Lake City, or something like that. And I was half thinking they did that to me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny.
But, like, during that entire time, we put our mission papers together, we took out our temple endowments together, like,
Yep.
we did everything together.
Oh yeah. Then you were in the MTC 2 weeks before I got there. A
Yeah,
month
I was
at most.
dude, okay, so our NTC experience, this is where ours is very different. You were there
Yes.
2 weeks, I was there 9 weeks.
I was there for even less than 2 weeks. I left like 10 or 12 days after I got there.
Y Yeah, it's like for you, it is a week and a half.
Yeah, it was
Like,
short.
every time I saw you, I was like,
I know,
"Cody!"
right?
And okay, and what's funny is I also ran into my childhood friend Lance at the NTCs too, and actually I saw him more times than I saw you.
That's hilarious.
But then again, and he got called to serve in Pennsylvania.
Nice.
But what was funny is like during that entire night, again for me, then I feel like when it comes to LDS missionaries, they either had an amazing time at the MTC or just the most horrible time at the MTC. And then there's you, Cody, who's like, I wasn't there long enough to get an experience.
I know. It was so short and so quick. I thought I was literally just learned some basic things, and then they sent me down, and I took the train to my mission. Quite literally, I took tracks. I took tracks from Provo up to Salt Lake to the mission home, and then yeah, it was absolutely insane. It was a great, amazing time, but
So, yeah,
that was intense.
yeah. Your travel time, probably grand total, was an hour and a half.
But really though, your travel time was the amount of time I was in the MTC.
Dude. Okay, no. Okay, my travel time was stupid. Okay, so real quick, the main reason why for us to why we had two different time links is because one, sorry, he was called Salt Lake City. He's
and
local.
I was English
And
speaking.
and he was English speaking. But not only that, when it comes to any of the Asian languages, originally it was 12 weeks.
Yep.
So, because of the age change and the massive influx of people they had coming in, they dropped the 12 weeks programs down to 9 weeks. So, any of the Asian languages were 9 weeks.
Yeah, and what
Actually, I
was
believe
typically
Chinese was still 12 weeks. I believe Chinese stayed at 12 weeks just because of how hard Mandarin is.
fair. Korean should have too then, because it's on the same level. Um, but yeah, so and then what's normally a month, that's 4 weeks, and MTC was dropped down to 12. But because of the way that transfers works, so
It's every
basically,
6 weeks.
yeah, and it lined up that I had to leave early to get in for our transfers, so we could get in with our new companions.
Yeah. So after the 9 weeks, I got my travel plan, and actually, I was rereading some of the journal with to Megan, I think a couple days ago, and it's still written there. My travel plan, like I was in the air flying for 22 hours because I had the most stupid travel plan. So we left Salt Lake, went over to Detroit. Yeah, we went east. Japan is to the west. We went over to Detroit, then we went over to Nagoya, Japan, and then finally we went to Sendai. I
Yeah.
was like, the Nagoya to Sendai, okay, that makes sense because again, they need hubs. There are international hubs in Tokyo and in Nagoya.
Hmm.
So that one was just like, honestly, they could have done. And again, actually, Tokyo has two international airports. They have two hubs,
Nice.
which when I left, I went out. Anyway, I won't cover that one yet.
Yeah.
So we went over to Nagoya and went up to Sendai, and we seriously arrived at like 11 o'clock at night. Our plane landed 11 o'clock at night. We got onto a bus. Most of us are like, again, we're jet lagged to the most extreme extent.
Yeah.
But again, that's the only like story I'm covering with this because again, that's not the story of us.
No.
We wrote letters, we emailed each other throughout our missions to kind of stay in touch. I still have like a picture of you from yeah that I took my digital camera, took a picture of the screen of you at the Salt Lake Temple during Christmas.
Yeah.
I said I still have that picture.
Can you send it to me? Because I don't have those anymore.
It's gonna be double digitalized. I'll see if
That's
I can
fine.
scan it and send it to you. But yeah,
Okay.
I can send that
Yeah.
to you.
I have to say,
But
Temple Square. So in downtown Salt Lake, the very center of it is where the Salt Lake Temple is, and there's an entire garden area there. In the wintertime, the entire garden is covered in lights, and then it snows there, and so it's the most beautiful place. Sorry, I just had to tell that.
oh no, like seriously, if you guys want to go somewhere in your West Coast that's pretty cool for Christmas time, check out Salt Lake Temple Square. Like, I'm not saying that to convert anybody, but although if you do, weak. But it is so beautiful, and it's actually more of an attraction, and it's very much drives more. I'm going to say tourists to check it
Yeah,
out. Just because it is so beautiful. It is like any type of drive through like Christmas show. It's that on steroids.
yeah, but you gotta walk through it.
Yeah, get walk through it. I think that's and, for me, I just remember as a kid, I remember walking through Temple Square, through the snow, holding a thing of hot chocolate. For me, it's such a nostalgic feeling, and it's just so wonderful. Especially the hot chocolate while you're walking through the cold. It's just oh, dude.
You know, and fun fact, so the Salt Lake Temple is currently being renovated, and
Mhm.
so in 2025 is when it's going to be completed. I'm right before they re what is the word?
Reopen?
Yeah, well, it's reopened, but they rededicate the temple
Oh, that's
for
right,
the
yeah.
use. Anyone can walk through and see it. So you can go through and walk through the entire temple and just see what it looks like inside, and it's absolutely stunning. It's so beautiful. I've been to about a dozen temples, and that's one of my all-time favorites.
Mhm. Although, dude, they actually just rededicated the Tokyo Temple.
Oh, but that was
Like,
beautiful.
me and Megan, like, when we do go to Japan, that is on our, like, bucket list, is we are definitely doing a session. And
Exactly.
it's because they actually, like, on the tiles, they have it, and again, you can see this in the world report. They've done like the tiles and everything Asian-esque, like it still holds true. This is the one thing I do love, especially about temples, is if you look at the architecture, it is so heavily influenced by the local areas.
Yeah,
Like the Tokyo Temple has like even parts of it, cherry blossoms. They have like a Zen garden. They have so much stuff that is very much more of the Asian culture built into it. And it is just so awesome and so amazing. That's why I'm so excited to go to Japan and to go to that temple.
that'll be really cool.
Yeah. But now post mission, I came home early from my mission due to like personal health issues, more specifically mental issues. So I started at going to BYUI before Cody even got there. I got one semester in under my belt, and prior to that, I worked at 2K Games as a quality assurance tester. I worked on Borderlands the pre-sequel, NBA 2K15, WWE 2K15, Evolve, and a little bit of Civilization Beyond Earth. I gotta test those games, so that's why I could say get a little bit of credit.
Yeah, and then
But
I got
that helped.
go
I
ahead.
was gonna say that helped me save up money so I could go to BYU.
Yeah, and then I got home, and 2 weeks later, I was at school.
Yep.
Bless my mom's heart. So one of the classes she had me take, I just find this hilarious. Is so at BYU Idaho, because it's a religious school, right? Requires you to take a religion class, and the one my mom signed me up for is marriage. It's literally called
Marriage and
Marriage and
eternal
Eternal
families.
Families. Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? I am at home for 2 weeks. I am 20 years old. I'm not looking to get married. I was looking to date, but not get married. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was fun.
And I was very much like, I don't want you to get married yet. I just got you back.
But we had a great time. We were
we
roommates right off the bat, and
we're
someone who will.
roommates. And
Uh,
yes, a friend of ours who will be a guest star on this, like he is game for it. At this point, we just need to figure out either if he's going to just be a guest or if he's going to be one of the other hosts in this, because oh, that would be awesome.
yeah,
His name is Alec. We call him Panda
Panda.
though.
Yep. So the way I met him was I was setting the stuff on my bed, getting it all set up, and then I went to somewhere else, came back, and I come in and he's setting things up on Austin's bed. Uh, and so I was like, he's like, "Hey, my name's Alec. I'm your new roommate." I'm like, you would be, but my friend's coming, and I'm sorry, but I need to ask you to leave."
I need you to take a different bed. This and again, Alec. Again, he is the kindest, most lovable man you will ever meet. He's just like,
So
"Oh, I'm so sorry," and moves across the hall, and which honestly, I was like, I
I
think
feel
both you
so
and I,
bad.
yeah, we feel bad because of the roommate he
I know.
ended
We should have just moved him into our room.
exactly. We should just like, you know what? You're the third row. You're the third row. There's a gap in between. You'll be the gap.
We're not on the mission anymore. We can be in the same room and the same bed.
Okay, okay. I got one funny story real quick with
Okay,
that.
go for it.
Okay, so mission transfers, most of the time, it's that's also where you can change companions. So I
Mhm.
don't know how it was with you, Cody, but for us, like we had to all go to Sendai. So whenever transfers happen and you had to even just get a new companion, you all met back up in Sendai.
Yeah.
So it's a 2.5 hour bus ride for us. So we hop on the bus, go up to Sendai, and we all meet in front of basically this big old giant mirror. Now, we're also told who our companion was.
Yeah.
So, I can say I met my companion, and honestly, if they go through training, your companion has to go through the training that they need to. If they're being a trainer and they haven't been a trainer before, they have to
Mhm.
go do the training. That was my companion, and so I got basically lumped in with another missionary or two, and we just went out to eat, had a good time.
Nice.
Then I re met back up with the companion, and he's like, "Okay, I have our plan. I know what we need to do. We're supposed to go to basically one of the elders' houses, and we're going to crash there for the night, and then we're going to head back to Iwaki. That was the city that we were serving in.
Yeah.
It is a small apartment, and there's like 30 missionaries in this small room.
That's right.
It is a grand total of 3 rooms. There is like 2 bedrooms, like that would fit grand total of maybe like 4 people comfortably in each room. Like I'm talking like, okay, me and Cody were both about 6 foot. So
Yeah.
laying down side to side, you could fit 4 of us in one room. That's how wide these things were. And then that was 2 rooms. And then there was a kitchen area. They crammed like 20 of us in there, and there were futons, there were bed mats. Like, we just had to place it. And at the very end of it, they're like, just make sure you're not next to your companion and we're within mission rules. Which
That's so
I
funny.
again, it's just so funny. Like again, that's like one of the plus sides with like serving in a foreign country is like you just get some of these weird experiences that you just have to adjust. Like again, I got that
Yep.
funny story. But anyway, so Alex just a very good dear friend of us. And at that
Yes.
point, Cody was saving my spot because my sister just got married and I am booking it across across California up through Nevada because I was living in Vegas at that point, packed my stuff. And actually, yeah, you were in Utah at that point too, visiting your sister.
Yeah. I was
Like
also
you
living
dropped your
there.
yeah, you
No, that
dropped
was
your
the
stuff.
next summer. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, you're that was the next summer. I think you dropped your stuff off and you and your family went down to see your sister, and I was
Probably.
basically the your ride up for the last leg.
That's right. Yeah.
And actually, I thought your parents followed us, but I'm not sure on that one.
So my first semester, my parents were there with me.
Yeah.
Because it was exactly the same as the first time I missioned, where they show up, drop me off, and I say bye and just walk away, and everyone gets mad at me because I'm supposed to like give your mom a hug, like say goodbye to them. I'm like, why? I was so ready to be out.
Oh yeah, you're like peace, and
Yeah.
but anyway, so we book it up there, and then I was like, I in my mind's, I was like, I gotta tell Cody not to get married yet. Gotta tell Cody not to get married. I prepared an entire speech, and I'm looking back, I'm like, dude, I was such an idiot. I was like, Nothing I can say was gonna stop you."
Hey, it took me over 2 years.
I'll say, but and actually, you met Ashley like the end of that semester.
I met her going into my third semester.
That's right.
So
That's
it
right.
was, or no, second semester. It was
It was
winter.
second semester. It was winter. It was winter
It was
semester
winter.
because
Yeah,
I was technically not supposed to be there.
that's right. That's right.
I worked through it. Which,
Yeah.
if anything, what we might do is we might just even leave like an episode of this podcast to dumb roommate stories we have.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. We should definitely do that. But yeah, so yeah. Anyways, I throughout that time we ended up doing a bunch of different things. I just more things together. We did League of Legends together. That's where I learned how much I hate the culture of League. And
Oh,
so I
dude,
switched to Tarkov, which is just as toxic, but only in game. Only in game. Outside of game, Tarkov is lovely and everyone is great. In game, everyone is toxic as
Oh yeah, no, I bet.
fuck.
But actually, I'm gonna kind of backtrack a little bit. But
Go for it.
this is where I say your BYU counselor, the guy who introduced you, like supposed to kind of show you
Yes.
around. His name is Matt.
Yes.
Now, Matt is important to the story because he's the one that got us introduced to Dungeons and Dragons,
Yes, he did.
which
So,
is yeah,
okay, so preface with this. My dad told me horror stories of Dungeons and Dragons because he lived through the 80s and the times
yeah.
where it was demonic and all that. So he made me promise back in I think I was in middle school, never to play it because I talked about a friend who had the stuff for it. And he's like, you cannot play that game. And so then I get into college, and Matt introduced us to Dungeons and Dragons, and I actually say no, I'm not gonna play until this fool on the this one right here, Jason,
Oh.
decided to do a Star Wars themed Dungeons and Dragons. It's like that can't be demonic. It's Star Wars, and there started a crippling addiction.
So, again, I got introduced to Matt because, again, honestly, that semester, Matt went through some crap.
He did, poor
He
guy.
went through so much crap, and this is where I'm like, I feel bad for the guy. So, honestly, he was at our apartment more times than he was at his.
Yeah,
So, he bonded with us, and this is kind of really where I'm gonna say our golden age at BYU I
yeah,
was during that time, 'cause I'm gonna say that winter semester where when I was working through it, that was, like, I think the best semester without a doubt.
nice. That was so much
Just
fun. It was so
it was
great.
so much fun. We did so many adventures, we did, like, a lot of stupid things. So, and again, I was on track in the spring, you were off track.
Yeah,
So, once that happened, I and this was also when Pokemon Go came out. So, me and Matt, we would actually go
yes,
around and play Pokemon Go. So
nice.
during all this, finally, like towards the end of the semester, he's like, "Hey, we're doing like a D&D one shot kind of thing. Would you want to come in and play?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I would love to. Sounds like fun." I was like, "That's why I can say I've at least tried it." Because again, he Matt told us all these stories he did with Dungeons and Dragons, and one of our other roommates, Jason, who's actually a Twitch streamer named Sekron,
Hmm.
he also played a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons as well. So those two would swap stories back and forth about it. And so for me, I was also told that demonic ritual, that kind of stuff, just to be wary of it. And so Matt's like, "Yeah, no, we're doing a D&D version, but we're doing like anime characters." I'm like, "Okay, I'm in. I'm in." Say less, I'm in. And so actually the character I was playing was Akatsuki from Log Horizon.
Yeah,
And one of the other guys, he was playing the shield guy that basically Akatsuki keeps on kicking to the
yeah,
moon. So every single time we would talk out, but the dude was playing like two characters, so I didn't know what it was. But overall, I had a good time.
yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'd be more inclined to do this again. It's not satanic, it's math, which
It
that
really
might be satanic.
same generation, same beliefs.
So I started getting into it, and this is when I moved over to yeah, the next semester I moved over to Mountain Lofts,
Yeah,
which again it's a nice apartment. It's a very nice apartment, very higher end, again higher end costs for rent, but overall it was very nice. Although I lived with 8 people, like it was me and 7 other guys in this apartment, but the apartment was 2 stories, so like again it worked.
it
It worked
did.
very well.
And this
Uh,
semester is when Matt became my roommate.
yes, that actually no. You guys, oh
Matt
that's
was my
right.
roommate that semester.
I took like 2 semesters off. I took some
Oh,
time
okay.
off. Like, I skipped that fall and I came back in the winter. I took a semester off.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember why. I think it was partly due to the depressive episodes I was getting,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that was the reason why. It's like I went home, got some help and
Mhm.
everything I needed. Then I came back that winter semester, and at this point Cody was engaged to his current wife.
Yep.
And everything, and again, this is where I finally I think I finally connected with Ashley, where I was like, "Okay, you know what? Yeah, you're marrying a good one. I'm good. You have my blessing, whole 9 yards." And so you guys started inviting me, like yeah, we started kind of going out doing more stuff together.
Yeah.
But this is where I had the roommate known as Robbie.
Oh,
He had other
Robbie's mom has got it going
oh,
on.
yeah. So that entire thing, he had a friend also from his mission who was married, and he held like a Dungeons and Dragons. So this was my
Yes.
actual full-fledged first-fledged campaign of Dungeons and Dragons. So it was me, my roommate Cameron, Robbie, and a couple of Robbie's friends. We went out, we did this, and we had a good time. We had a good time enjoying the campaign, and for me, I'm like, I'm sure there's gotta be a Star Wars version just 'cause I wasn't I'm more of a sci-fi guy. I was a more way more into sci-fi, especially Star Wars at that time. Like,
Mhm.
I would listen to the Star Wars legacy books, like, they were just so good, so amazing, and I loved them. So, I was like, "You know what? Let me do a Star Wars version of this." And that's where Cody was like, "All right, let's do it. Let's do a Star Wars version." He did, like, a bounty hunter, like, a
Yep, I did a
Mandalorian
Mandalorian.
Jedi.
Yep.
Mandalorian Jedi. And also had Matt was a Jedi, like, again, overall, the campaign was good. I think we left again, when we were actually at BYUI, I thought I left it on a good note where I thought it was, like, the best twist where we did, like, the Thrawn trilogy, and I had you guys frozen in Carbonite and all of what you guys were seeing. Again, this is where
Yeah.
my art of storytelling just first came to being because 'cause I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I love doing this kind of story."
Yep. It was fun.
So that's how we got introduced to like Dungeons and Dragons, but mostly we played Pathfinder at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually one of the last times. Yeah, no, that semester was the last semester I was at BYUI.
Yeah, it was.
The yeah, the rest of any campaign we did was through roll 20.
Yep. So fun thing was Robbie actually led one of the campaigns, and this was my first actual D&D setting. I'm
Oh,
like a
that's
typical
right.
D&D world because I had done a Percy Jackson themed one with Matt.
Hmm.
Um, but then this was the first actual themed one, and I think it was 5e even. Um,
I don't
but
no, it was Pathfinder. It was
it
Pathfinder.
was
We didn't do 5e
until Panda.
until
Alex did
Panic.
the one shot. That's right. But
Alec was 5e.
yeah. So the one shot with, or the it really was a one shot with
Robbie.
Robbie. So I was a rogue. I was a shadow dancer rogue, and I thought it was the coolest thing going up. And then one of the other characters was a paladin, and so he just ran straight into everything. And so then he's like, "All right, you guys, no one's in stealth anymore." I'm like, "I'm on the other side of a building hiding. They don't know I'm here." Like, well, you know your group's here, so you're no longer stealth, and you don't get any of the stealth bonuses. I was like, "What? How does this work?"
Yeah.
And I just didn't understand it. That's just when I learned that people don't know what they're doing half the time, and it's just for fun.
Yeah, Robbie's not the greatest dungeon master. Again, he's a bad dungeon master. He's not that good.
No, he was his first try, I
It
think,
was
but it
his
was just
first
fun.
time.
But that was my first experience with actual D&D, and I was so confused because I felt like things weren't going the way they're supposed to. And so then I went and I decided to do my own research, and I got the Dungeon Master's Guide,
Mhm.
and I learned how to DM with a few trial and error. I had a couple things, but after Alex one shot, that's when with going to 5e, that's where things took off for me.
Yeah, same here. Honestly, I think that 5e one shot did so much for us.
Yeah.
That's where, because again, this is where again Pathfinder. Honestly, they have a lot of rules. It's honestly compared to 5e, it's pretty complicated.
Yes.
5e was a lot simpler. Was a lot more kind of. I'm not gonna say bare bones, but was more like your basics.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as you got into it, and just because of how basic fifth edition is, it allows a lot more flexibility. Allows you to do actually more than I feel like you could do with Pathfinder. Now, Pathfinder has like a stat for everything, whereas with at least 5e, you can lump it onto other categories.
Yeah. It's true.
And then
I
this is where, yeah, me and you started building our own fantasy worlds, started doing our own campaigns, and us just kind of involving each other into our campaigns.
so
Uh, Although,
fun
have
thing
I
with
had
that. Go
you?
ahead.
I'd
Go
say,
ahead.
have I actually had you in one of my full-fledged campaigns? I don't think I have.
No, you haven't. I ran the campaign that we did together.
Yeah, that's right. I've been in
I
your world, you haven't been in mine.
I've helped you with your world.
Yes,
That's
you've
where
helped me
that
build my
is.
world, absolutely.
I am so earlier you heard the noise where it popped up like something had opened and wrong when you were
Mhm,
talking earlier. So
yeah.
that was because I was pulling up one of the things from D&D that I found. It's the Doors of Stone. Which
Jeez.
I named this before I found out about the King Killer Chronicles third book being called The Doors of Stone, so I'm not
Oh.
ripping that off. Um, but this entire thing, this is the huge dungeon that I built that I had you go through and test some
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's 17 pages long of
Dang.
all of the notes of every single room. There is 4 floors to this place. Each floor has about 10 or more rooms, or 9 on that one. Yeah, like 9 plus rooms on the floor.
Gosh dang.
And you guys went through, I think, a quarter of it.
Oh, man.
It was so much fun. I was just looking at all that. So sorry.
Oh, no, dude, it's all good, it's all good. Just dang, just Dungeons& and Dragons was really kind of the start of I know for me, more delving into the fantasy genre. So, as I said before, I did leave BYU and I went back home to Vegas just because I was not doing well in school. I just felt like, you know what, art I was originally studying illustration, and again, the guys, that were taking these classes were, like, years ahead of me when it came to their experience. I feel like now if I went back, I would stand on equal footing as a lot of these guys.
Yeah,
But for me, that just wasn't I really wasn't connecting, and I felt like that was actually a good stem where my depression was coming from because I just felt like a failure with school, with everything, so I dropped out of BYUI, and I started working at MGM Grand. And during this time, I started taking voice acting classes. I started really kind of just finding other mediums or other career opportunities. And as that came about, I got into the Stormlight Archives. My dad, me and my dad really haven't had the best relationship because whenever we've moved, he would always go first. He would go first to the area, kind of get acquainted with the area, and then we'd move, and then we'd follow him. The biggest chunk of my life was he was gone because for about I want to say 3 4 years he was in Kentucky when I was in elementary school. So with it, and then constantly too, as we'd get to one area, within a year or two later, he moved to the next area, kind of scout out locations, get everything ready. Then we'd follow, and it was always that constant kind of rinse and repeat. So once college happened, and I was really trying to look for a way to bond with my brother and bond with my dad. And we did that through fantasy books. So first one that actually a coworker recommended to me was called the Stormlight Archives, or more specifically, the Wave Kings. And so I started, and again, I had an Audible membership, so I was like, it's a credit, I can do this. And I started listening to it. I was like, dang, it's a slow build. And I started listening to it on speaker, and my dad comes and is like, are you listening to The Way of Kings? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, it's a good book. Just keep listening to it. I was like, it's really slow. It's like, just keep listening. Just keep listening. I'm like, I'm through the first part. It is super slow. What the heck? Is like, oh, interlude. Okay. After the interludes, it gets good. And then I got into part two and it did get good. It got really good.
it is a slow burn.
It is a slow burn, but then once you get to the final part, it's like an explosion.
I know it really is.
Like this is where it's the Sanderlanche because
Yeah.
it just keeps building and building and building, and then poof, dumps on you.
So
And
fun
so that
fact.
was I was gonna say, so that was my first real experience with a high fantasy book.
Yeah. So fun fact with that, Austin has told me about the Stormlight Archives for years. Like literally years. He's been trying to get me to read this book. I finally caved about what was it, 6 months ago?
Yeah, about 6 months ago.
And I'm currently on book 3. I
Okay,
got about halfway through, and then I got sidetracked because the fifth book of King's Dark Dining came out, and so I
oh,
switched
okay,
over and listened to that. So I just have to
gotcha,
sign into yours to listen to that again.
gotcha.
I'm cheap. I borrow people's stuff instead of using my own.
I say this is where we're both cheap. Okay, you use my stuff, I use your stuff. It's equivalent exchange, baby.
You know it. Oh, yeah.
But
But yeah,
and because of that, I know Cody's actually talked about the King Killer Chronicles for a while, so I've actually finally started that, and I finally now understand where our name Tomes comes from.
you found tomes. Yes.
I am up, yeah. Kavoth is at the university. He's been in the archives. How there's one section labeled tomes. I'm like, Okay, I see what Cody's talking about. Okay.
So there's actually purpose why I named it Tomes. I have been on BookTube for a while now, not with my own videos, just watching and other
Just
people.
partaking.
Yeah, and there are some people that are so incredible. My personal favorite is Caption in Words. I just really enjoy watching his videos, and there's a few others I really enjoy. And I figured that Jason and I would be able to bring a lot to the table in our own perspectives, but I didn't really think that we would be doing things like the archives section of things where it's so in depth. And tomes is kind of this is an introductory thing. This is just kind of a base of it all. This is like the lighter end of things. Other people have to get all the hard work and do all that, and we just kind of talk about it. And so
Mhm.
that's where the name originates and the purpose behind it, where it's not the craziness of the in-depth every little detail, every little thing. This is fun. This is just the basics. And that was my initial thought with it. Obviously we're gonna do what we're gonna do with it, but that's where my initial thing came from because I just personally when I was gonna do this alone, didn't think that I'd be able to pull off anything like what anyone else I saw on BookTube doing.
Yeah, so this is where, at my again, the week of my wedding, Cody approaches me because Cody was my best man. Approaches me with this idea. He's like, I would like to like start a podcast, YouTube channel, just something. Want us to be able to talk about books because seriously, that first night Cody came down, we just talked about Stormlight Archive. He was telling me about the King Killer Chronicles, just how cool and in depth it really gets. And we were just like very casually talking about it, and we just were having a good time with it. And very in this where Cody's like, I want to do something kind of similar to this, but like in some type of form, like on YouTube, just because no one really talks about it in like a basic way. It's always like these in-depth lore. It's like again going into book 3 of Stormlight Archives and being able to talk about surge bindings and lashings and just all of it. Like even just having you need to have that in-depth knowledge to be able to even get into it. Whereas for us, we want to cover stories. That's our big thing. Is
Yeah.
very much in Tolkien's beliefs and why he was writing is he wanted to use fantasy books as escapism. And I feel like recently, just because the way the country's gone recently,
Yeah.
we've been looking for more reasons to escape and get into something that is more fun, that is magical, that is mystical. And that is what reading for us is. And that's what stories are for us. Whether that story be told through Dungeons and Dragons or through Audible, through movies, books, TV shows, video games. We just love these stories and we need to have these escapes. But I know a lot of it can be daunting. Like anybody, like, okay, so this next weekend, I am doing a one shot campaign with my in laws. They have never
Nice.
played Dungeons and Dragons before, and they have their little ones participating as well.
That'll be fun.
So again, I have the perfect one shot because it's Halloween themed. It works perfect. But as I'm going through this, I need to come up with a way to kind of spoon feed them on how this works. And I feel like that's what some of the fantasy needs is we for anybody getting started into it, they need to be waded into this big old giant ocean of just fantasy.
And that's really our goal. That's what we want to do is just share stories, and we want to share our stories. We want to share and talk about stories other people have talked about or shown, whether videos, movies, videos, or books. And then anyone that wants to can send in their story, and we'll be happy to go through and read them. I
Mhm.
am cool thing with Jason is he is very talented with the different media. He can do soundboards and all that. He actually went to school and got a degree or a certificate and all that.
Yep. Uh,
Yeah, I let you explain that better because
Let's say, yeah. So my professional background at this point is I am a sound designer, sound engineer, sound mixer for not just this podcast, but I work on a podcast called Parent Projects, where for them it is a video podcast. Theirs is actually easier to edit than ours.
mine's because I have a crappy mic.
No, it's not just that, but for us, we have a lot more interesting visuals that I throw in. Whereas
Yeah,
they're actually on camera, whereas we're not doing camera, we're just doing audio.
yeah.
So I have certificates and proof of everything on just my proficiency in Pro Tools, Reaper. These are all different DAWs or known as digital audio workstations. I've also have got at this point I'm using more Final Cut Pro for video editing. I'm now starting to learn After Effects so that way I can do maybe some small animations for our bumpers. So I very much have a background and am certified in audio engineering, audio work, and I very much do enjoy doing sound design for not just podcasts, but for I am also working on Beyond Skyrim's modding project. And actually, for a lot of the projects we did at school, I was the one doing the sound design for all of it. And for those who don't know what sound design is, best example I think of for one of the most iconic is Godzilla's roar or a lightsaber sound effect. It is those people who come up with those interesting sounds and really fill the soundscape. Like even what we did for schooling is we got a clip from The Mandalorian that we had to do the entire sound work for. I am talking from the voice acting to the little sounds of the bridle of someone riding a like weird alien horse, to being tossed around the ground, footsteps, clothing movements. There's a lot that just goes into the sound effects, and actually, one of the projects we did was actually for an audio drama from H.G. Wells' Time Machine, where we added sound effects, distortions, we just really made it come alive, and it was just so much fun, and I am really looking forward to being able to do that with some of the stuff we will record in the future. But again, it's a lot of time, and right now I can't put that into those kind of projects just yet, which is part of the reason why we're really wanting this podcast to really take off. We're wanting this to take off so that way we can tell these stories, bring these stories to another level to where me and Cody could quit our day jobs and just do this full time. Like that would be so awesome and so amazing.
Yeah, and the entire like the big thing that we wanted to do was to tell your stories. And
Hmm.
eventually, with the Patreon, one of the things on there is to have your story be soundboarded
Hmm.
and to tell a story with all the effects and all that. But that's a end goal type thing. But it's
Yeah.
just one that I personally am extremely excited about. And anytime that we talk about this, talk about the podcast, the YouTube, and all that, that's what I get so excited about doing. Um, so that's why I keep
Mhm.
bringing it up.
Yeah, no, and again, we're just so excited because again, we love reading stories, we love partaking stories, and don't get me wrong, we're a little bit of critics. Like we if we see something that's just bad or stupid, we're going to call it out. Like again,
Yes, and we expect
Rings
the
of Power
same.
is our prime example.
Yes, but
Expect the same kind of breakdown where we will try to like even like in that horrendous work, we still saw some positives. We still saw some good things in it, and that's what we are wanting to do is if it's just like, okay, I really like the really like what you're trying to do with it. Maybe what we could do, and again, this is where we
be
want you to
far
tell your
more
stories.
constructive.
We want to be more constructive. We want you to succeed, but this is also where we want you to also have your privacy. Is this will be kind of a service that if you want us to air on this podcast, we would be more than happy to. But if you just want another opinion, we'll do that as well,
Yeah.
and we can keep that private.
Yep.
It's all down to what you guys want.
Yep. I'm.
But with
Yes,
that, I think we really do need
yeah,
to bring in Alec just because I think it would be
we
cool to have a
do.
third person perspective. Because I have another idea, which I can now talk to you after all this, and honestly, I might
Okay.
rope and see if Panda's would be in on it as well.
I am so down. I'd love to have him come in and join. If he's able to, let's do it.
Exactly, if he's able to. Like that's the
Yes.
key thing in all this. But I think that's going to be it for the episode. Yeah, we're over an hour. We're going to try to keep it down to to around an hour at most. Like
Yeah.
that's our goal, but nah, just sometimes when you're just sharing stories, you tend to go over, which honestly, this is perfect. This is perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
Um, well, yeah. Like I said, we'll try and keep it to an hour. But if we go over, it's because we're having a good time and we're just enjoying talking to you guys and to each other.
But as of right now, we will again put a bookmark in the chapter, or even actually, how would we do this? Because our story is still being written.
You know, I think for now, it's just that we're gonna be picking up a new book on the next one.
Yep. Which I will brainstorm some topics, but I think I might have an interesting one.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so with that, we'll close this book for now, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.